Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the panel discussion. My name is Ayokunu Oduniyi, founder of 412 Men, husband to one wife, the amazing, most beautiful, if I have to say a word that many people fitting for the altar, but the most electrifying woman on the planet. Her name is Susan Deborah Oduniyi. Hey, baby. You know, when you're married, life is sweet. You always pick up your wifey. But yes, I'm joined by amazing men of God. I'm going to allow all of them to introduce their name, who they are, where they're from, give us their credibility, in the words of Reverend Israel. And I'll start to my left, my bro, Drippy E, man.
My name is Emmanuel Akinfenwa, humble servant, bond servant of Jesus Christ. Husband to one wife, one beautiful wife as well, father of a beautiful daughter as well. We lead a church called City Worship London. By the grace of God, it's going on to 3 years now. By the grace of God, there's a lot of things we do, but that's not what we're here to talk about. So I'll move on.
My name is Isreal O, Isiavwe. Like them, the husband of one wife.
Hallelujah.
And sorry, Pastor Susan, you are the second most.
Fam, doesn't look like that. Still.
I'm only joking, but father to two sons. I lead humbly, have the privilege to lead a network of churches and ministries called Kingdom Culture Movement. I will not go into too much detail about that, but that's an amazing work that God's put in our hands now for about 11 years that's spawned into churches, social justice initiatives, and also an apostolic network that covers other churches and ministries. I'm also an entrepreneur. So I run a handful of businesses, which I don't want to bore you with, but my most recent venture, which I'm very excited about, is a media house that is in the works. So we are bringing the kingdom to the big screen and the small screen. So stay tuned.
My name is Omar Tackie, soon-to-be husband of one wife.
Jeez! Come on!
Hallelujah.
Come on!
Glory.
Hallelujah.
Come on!
Hallelujah.
Shanda.
I'm a minister of the Ark Church in Forest Gate, soon to be lead elder of my own branch. I'm also studying theology in university, teach first-year theology students as well. I believe that's all about me as it currently pertains to life.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Ashley Gabriel, husband to one wife as well.
Praise God.
Feels
One
nice
wife
to be
ministry out here.
Yeah, feels good to be a part of the community. Father of two, so I have a daughter who's 4 years old. My son is 6 weeks old, 7 weeks on Monday.
Wow.
I oversee one of the Ark churches in Thurrock. We've been going for 5 years now and launched Ark Bible School in September 2019.
Wow, awesome. Awesome. So, as you guys can see, we have men of God on this stage. Men of God. Some of them try to be humble about their CV, but, there's lots I'm sure they'll get into. But really, with the panel discussion, guys, I just want us to share our process. To when we said yes, all of you are church planters, if I remember correctly from what you all said. Ranging from, I'm a young one, only 1 year. Ranging to 3 years. How many? Is yours not 11? Is it? It's more than
Almost
that.
12 now.
Okay, yeah. Okay, it's gonna be one. It's gonna be soon, innit? Yeah. And then if you got 5 in it. Yeah. Different ages. I'm not sure you guys are comfortable saying your ages. 'Cause I think that's quite important to let people know the timings of these things. I think they have different implications. They do.
You're right, they do.
So I want to open up the floor to anyone can answer. By the way, what does it mean to say yes? And when God called you specifically to plant the church, what was the process like?
Humble bond servants of the Lord.
When you say yes, you don't realize what you're getting yourself into. I wasn't told, like on the roads, all right, so I was a gang member back in the days, and I wasn't told that my area, I'd inherit the beef of my postcode. And it's the same thing with Jesus. You're not told that you're going to inherit a war, a battle between kingdom of darkness and kingdom of light. And it's like people say, yeah, give your life to Jesus. Everything's going to be amazing. But I had no idea what I was in for. And that's not to discourage anybody. It's actually the most amazing and exhilarating experience in life. You know, I'd never felt life until I gave my life to Jesus. But what comes with that is weighty. And my yes, I was an atheist before I gave my life to Christ. So my yes was a literal shift from worshipping without knowing it's Satan and then giving my allegiance to the God of the whole universe. And that shift in and of itself caused me to dig into the scriptures and know him for myself, what just saved my life. It was a very supernatural experience. And that journey has led me to say my life's not my own. I was a person who tried to commit suicide 4 times. And so experiencing life in Jesus, I realized I have to say yes. For the rest of my days, I have to say yes. I never thought I'd be a pastor. I never thought that I'd even go down this route. But all of that is because of what he done to me. And so me being alive today is because he saved me. So my yes it's just a resounding yes. It's like a non-stop bang yes. Like, do you know what I mean? And I think throughout my time to land is I've had to learn to say no. Even though he saved me and it was a yes to him, I had to learn the difference between God and man. And know that not every opportunity that man presents you with is actually of God. And so that's a journey that I had to go through. But that's what my yes meant to me.
Awesome. I want to touch a bit in there. I think I watched your testimony a while back. I think you had like dreams and visions about a relationship you was in, if I remember correctly, or not. I think it had to do with you getting saved as well. Am I correct? Yeah. Do you want to touch in a bit? I want you guys to give them the nitty-gritties of the process. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because some guys, you know, we can preach to say yes and it sounds good, you know what I mean? But then we all know walking out that yes is a whole nother paradigm. So I want us to at least give them a bit of light into our lives as to what that looked like, to give them some sort of encouragement and consolation.
That's good. I was in a relationship for 5 years. And, all right, truth be told, just being on the roads, I felt I loved her because of the security and comfort she gave me, but I don't think it ever was that. And when I gave my life to Jesus, it was literally, I walked out of a church service and I felt light, I felt life, I felt like everything that I'd been through in my past had been stripped away from me. But it was like I had and I'm not trying to be spooky or spiritual, but it was like I had a new lens of life. Everything was color. And you know, a lot of people say that, but I lived it. And I came out, whilst I was in that church service, and the pastor was basically saying, what's chased you your whole life is gone, and yada, 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 my phone kept on ringing. And whilst I was in this church service, about to give my life, I had 18 missed calls from my girl whilst I was in the service. But like my phone's in my pocket, I kept on pressing the volume button to mute it. I came out of the service and I've got this whole new perspective. I've given my life, atheist, just transitioned, and I phoned her after the service and I'm like, what's going on? Whilst I was at the church service, she was in my bed, but she had a panic attack. She had a panic attack in my bed. So I've said, all right, no, she told me she's gone A&E. So I said, all right, I'm coming to the hospital. She said, no, I'm at the house. So I came home. Straight upstairs. I looked at her, she had a breathing mask on her face, but it wasn't attached to a machine. And instantly, atheist about 2 hours ago, instantly manipulation came to my mind, manipulation. And I went, raw. And I went downstairs, got her a drink of water, came upstairs, and the first thing I said to her was, I don't want to have sex no more. The first thing I said to her. Now, as an atheist, I was continuously doing this. Gave my life. Now, 2 days later, I had a dream. Long story short, all right, I got pulled out of my body in this dream. Now, again, atheist, I didn't really dream. You know, like a lot of people say, what did you dream about? And it's like, no, I didn't dream about anything. But I had a dream, came out of my body. I was walking down the road. 2 guys tried shooting at me, missed. I actually thought like if I died in that dream, I would have died real life. Anyway, came to my front door. There's a woman there. She hasn't got a face. You know, like it's a black, it's misty here. And she's talking to me. And then I let her into my house. Next thing you know, she's in my bathtub naked. Nitty gritties, yeah? She's in my bathtub naked. Actually, I'm not going to explain what she looked like. But she's in my bathtub naked. She's got ginger hair. Again, she's got this misty things. Like, if you know when you watch horror movies and the child's drawing the thing, they scribble out the face, like it doesn't have a face. It's like that. And she's trying to seduce me in the bathtub. She's like, come here, I want to do this, I want to do that. Like, she's saying a lot. And then, anyway.
She's saying a lot.
Listen, I said to her, who are you? And remember, this is a dream. I said, who are you? The voice goes deep, I am the devil. But I heard it in my ears, like physically, whilst I was sleeping, and it kind of shook me up. As soon as she said that, my ex's name crossed my mind. Like, and I said, get out. And then I woke up 4 o'clock in the morning, cold sweats, a dish smashed downstairs in my kitchen straight away as soon as I woke up. And then, like, I'm baffled. I'm like, bruv, I've only been a Christian 2 days. How do I handle this? So I phoned the pastor.
Like, come on, man.
This is the real deal, guys. 2 days.
I need some after-sale service.
I phoned the pastor. I'm saying, raw, like, what should I do? All he did was pray. I was like, that's not it. Long story short, I phoned one of my boys. I told him, listen, everyone's kind of lied to my face growing up in it, and I know you lot don't like my girl anyway. Well, I didn't say that, but I knew it. And I said to him, just be truthful with me. What do you think about this relationship? He said, bro, it's not of God. As soon as he said that, I don't know what came into me, what I do, but this strength came into me. And I literally phoned her and said, me and you can't be together no more because of a dream. I didn't say this, but when I phoned my girl to speak with her about it, I said, yo, I just had this dream, etc., etc., etc. She said, why do I have a feeling that dream's about me? Remember, her name crossed my mind. I didn't tell her about that. So instantly, I kind of felt weird about it. Anyway, long story short, I had this conviction to break up with her, and I broke up with her. Girlfriend of 5 years. She was with me through my stabbing, through my suicide attempts, through all the betrayals that I went through. If there's anyone I should have been loyal to, it was her. But I strongly felt, as a man who had no language about giving up your former idols to follow God, I strongly felt it impressed in me to let go of my net and follow him. I felt it strongly impressed upon me to let go of this one thing that could potentially pull me back to follow him. And that was my surrender. That was my yes. And after that, God showed up, man.
Wow. I'm speechless still. 2 days, guys. Wow. And I'm liking the mixture of wise counsel that's there as well. You had to call someone, they told you something, their words brought a conviction upon you. Your prompt obedience to that conviction, very key part. If you lingered a bit more, you might not have the ability to do it. And we're seeing, obviously, where that yes is leading Omar to where he is now. So essentially, Omar entered into warfare when he said yes. Guys, does anyone else want to follow on any stories of what their process was when they said yes?
You're looking at me, okay.
I'm just looking at anybody, mate.
My experience is both my parents were in ministry. My dad is a prophet, my mum is a pastor. So I'd grown up seeing church. I'd seen the politics. I'd seen the warfare of leadership. I'd seen the pains of leadership. However, I had to go on my own journey. So in my early teenage years, quite a few of my close friends were Muslims. So for me, I kind of dabbled in that space, started reading the Quran, and sometimes I even followed them to the mosque. And I was becoming very learned in it to a point where even though I wasn't a Muslim, there was a point where they asked me to do the calls to prayer. Wow. And I had learned it offhand. I just learned, you know, when you listen to like rap music or something like that, you just listen to the bars over and over again. It just became something natural. But every time that I would want to sing the call to prayer, I would have a cracking or splitting migraine. I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? Like, what's the problem? And it was on that journey of me kind of exposing myself to the realities of God, in that I'd always thought that, okay, you know what, heaven is a matter of, my parents are in ministry, I can go to heaven, it doesn't matter. And aside from that, I was a very big hypocrite, because aside from doing this Islam thing, my friends who were on the road, I was a fighter. I wasn't in a gang, I was a fighter. So if there's beef, you're calling Iman, because you know he's gonna fight. You know he's got energy to burn. So there was this. When I'm at church, I was very good. When I'm at home, I'm very good. When I'm outside, everybody knows who I am. So it's kind of like, everyone was like, what's this guy doing? And on top of that, I was a thief as well. So I'd actually rob people in school and outside of school. And then at the same time, play drums at church, you know, be a kind guy, whatever. And then 2004, I was sleeping. I had a vivid dream. God was showing me the city of London on fire. And God said that I've given you a commission, and your mission is to save London. I woke up cold sweats as well, because I didn't know what that meant. A couple years later, going to uni, I just realized I'd lost a lot of friends. People had walked away from me and stuff like that. And I remember it was an afternoon, literally 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The lights were off. I had closed the curtain in my uni room, and I was literally depressed as depressed can be. And I remember my dad giving me a call going, son, the Lord is saying that you are necessary for your generation. While I was in a dark space, while I was in a dark room. And he was like, you're necessary. I don't know what you're going through now, but I want to remind you that the call of God on your life is great. But at that time, you know, because friends had left, I was just in a bad space. And what was happening also during that time is that I was getting called to preach at a lot of youth events. But my walk with God was still a bit wavery. It was still kind of like, you know, you can do a bit of this, you can do a bit of that. And I was still getting administration. So for those who are kind of like, you can be gifted, anointed, and still be living in sin or doing things that don't please God, it is very possible. Souls were saved. I remember listening to you a couple of weeks ago on the YouTube. Souls were saved. Signs, wonders, and miracles. Speaking into, prophesying. All of that was happening, and I yet wasn't fully committed. And that took me on a 2-year journey, because I was like, I know this is real, but I know that this is going to cost me. So I ran for 2 years. 2012. I finally, beginning of the year, I finally came around to it and saying, God, yes, I'm committed to serving you wholeheartedly. And yes, in an element like rededicating, but it was more so accepting the call. So then in May of that year, my dad and a few other men of God that I look up to were like, okay, right, now that you've said yes, you know what's next? I said, no, what's next? They were like, yep, it's time for ordination. I said, ordination for what? They said, it's time for ordination. This is what you've been running from all your life. I said, no, I don't believe in that. Anyway, they set the date in place. They did everything. Ordination happened. I remember my mom saying to me, tell your friends, tell, you know, your girlfriend, my wife now, but they were like, tell her to come and support you. I did not tell anybody. So it was a bunch of elders that didn't know me, and my family laid hands on me. Praise God. I remember going back into the uni space, doing a lot of campus ministry stuff, and not telling anybody that this was the call of God, this is what I was doing. And I remember engaging, like at uni, there were guys from the road who were trapping on campus. There were girls that were doing drugs. There were people that were sleeping around. There were people that were into witchcraft, all of that kind of stuff. And I then found myself in positions of doing campus ministry in a different way. So I was seeing guys that were trapping in the uni area stop. Drug addicts giving up their drugs. I saw ladies that were just sleeping around with every guy on campus being delivered of sexual perversion. I saw atheists come to the knowledge of Christ. This was just through me accepting this reality that God had called me to. And then, you know, just to wrap things up, you know, in the process of time, God had been speaking always about City Worship London, but I kind of was like, you know, God, that means, you know, this pastoring thing. I've seen my parents. I've seen other men and women of God. The rejection, the pains, the traumas, the people lying about you, all of that kind of stuff. I said, I'm not ready. And once again, it was the reminder of, it's pick up your cross, it's follow me. That's the call. And it was kind of the reminder that I am necessary for the generation, but I'm necessary when I'm ready to bow my knee. When I'm ready to bow my knee, that's when I become relevant to my generation. And so at that point, it was kind of like, okay, God, we give that to you, serve that at church. Once my dad's church closed down, served at another church for 4 years, did campus ministry there with my wife, ran it. 2017, God spoke to me. He was like, next year, you're going to begin city worship. And that began a process of me speaking to my leaders, which didn't really go down too well. Not because they didn't know I was called, but because my wife and I were strong pillars in the church. We brought a lot of people to the church. We did, a lot for the pastors. So it was kind of like, you're leaving us now when things are going great. But yeah, that's another conversation. But yeah, by the grace of God, our yes has meant a lot of things. It's been sacrifice. I mean, everyone looks at, men of God preaching on the stage, but I can tell you the reality is that 98% of the work is behind closed doors. Even up to today, even up to today, like on the way here, crazy news about one of my members. But it's the reality that, it's not as simple as we think. We can talk it all. We can, do the theatrics. I can do my revelations for you, and you guys are like, wow. But doesn't mean anything if there's no sacrifice, and the sacrifice is what nobody sees.
And Eman's talking the real talk. There were times I call Eman and he's doing night vigil on campus, praying literally all night. You remember those times, yeah? You put in work. So he's still doing it now. Ashley, talk to us.
Yeah, so briefly, trying to give you guys a bit of context about myself. Never grew up in church, but I do remember the point that I started going to church. In fact, it was because one of my friends had died, got stabbed to death, and that was recurring events. But me and him were both in a football academy after school. Bournemouth Football Academy, was playing football, and early got stabbed to death. And from there, kind of brought this pursuit about who's God. So I remember going to church and was going to events, youth events and so forth. And one particular time, went to this youth event and this guy was speaking. I can't tell you what he was speaking about, but he'd done an altar call. So I came forward, and next thing I know, like I'm experiencing different feelings, emotions, so forth. Next thing I'm speaking in tongues. Never heard of tongues in my life. So speaking in tongues. So I leave. I'm driving my car going back home. I'm still speaking in tongues. I'm trying to hold my mouth to stop. I get home. My mum, my sister don't know about tongues. My brother don't know about tongues. I'm still speaking in tongues. So I'm like to myself, I'm saying to myself, shh, like trying to keep it in. So suppress that feeling. So months later, was attending church, felt this call to get baptized. So as I was getting baptized, I grew up in Tottenham. I live in Essex now, so Tottenham at heart. And I remember going to Broadwater Farm where my cousins were to let them know I'm getting baptized the next day. So as I got to the area, my cousin came to the car. Actually, Omar's fiance would know. You remember the blacked out whip that I had? I had a blacked out car, tinted, everything that you would imagine of someone in the hood to have. So I roll up to Broadwater Farm. My cousins are there and boys are in the area. So I say to my cousin, look, I'm getting baptized tomorrow. Like, come church, you should come. He's like, that's crazy, that's mad, I will come. So as we're talking, I see two girls from secondary school. Now, both of the girls used to like me. And I don't know if any of you guys can relate, but you know the girls that never look good in school, but somehow they look good at that moment. And so I know this thing. So I remember at that moment, I was thinking, do I get out of the car and talk to them? I was thinking, am I actually becoming a Christian to leave this behind? And so I stayed in the car, ended up driving. And as I'm driving, I'm looking in my rearview mirror, looking back, and just thinking, I'm actually leaving girls behind. And I saw guys selling weed and so forth. I'm actually leaving money behind. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Like, becoming a Christian. So I remember being at home, and about 12 o'clock at night, I'm hearing, get on the floor, get on the floor. So I look outside my window. I hear one girl screaming, saying, he got stabbed. So some of my friends had stabbed someone. I saw all of them lined up outside a chicken shop. I was living in a flat, and about 8 of them got put in the police van. And it's like God spoke to me right there and said, this is what would happen to you if you don't follow me. So got baptized the next day. And all I can say, this was 10 years ago. The moment I got baptized, I dropped everything. I deleted Facebook. I threw away my SIM card and so forth. So I can say truly my wife is the only person I've slept with since being saved. And that was like Hallelujah. 6 years later. But in terms of saying yes to the call, for me first it was obviously rejecting the world. And then when I got saved, all I was doing was attending Bible studies, went to an Alpha course. Straight after the Alpha course was like, you know what, I want to study theology. So I went to a Bible college for 2 years. After studying at this Bible college for 2 years, was being invited to preach around. I said, I want to study theology further just because of a love for the Word of God. And so went and applied to London School of Theology and was there for 3 years. As I'm coming to the end of my studies, I'm saying, God, what's next? I was like, I don't know what to do next. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to become a teacher. But during that period, my pastor said, you know what, I sense God leading you to start a church in Thurrock. That wasn't in the equation. I said, okay, that's your thoughts, that's cool. So went into teaching, and it so happened that during that period, we moved out to Essex. Me and my wife got married. So as we were in Essex, I remember a few people moved out to Essex. My pastor called a meeting, and everyone was there, and was sharing about talking and setting up a church plant. I said to my wife, I said, we are not running the church plant. And the reason being is because there was a bit of church hurt. About a few months initially, I said to my pastor, I'm leaving the church because I feel God calling me to another church who I was working closely with on placement. That didn't work out, and not going to go into details there, but there was church hurt there. So remember, we're in this meeting. I said to my wife, there's no way I'm leading the church. That's not the call for me. So we got there was about 15 people in the room, and everyone was saying, it'd be amazing to start a church plant in Essex and so forth. And then it came to the question, well, who's going to lead it? And everyone pointed at me. And so I looked at my wife for backup, and she was like, it sounds like a good idea.
Wow. So they hanged you out to dry.
Someone's taking a camera.
And then she said, it sounds like a good idea. And from that moment, like I was just remembering as you were sharing, like considering the cost and dying daily. And I said, okay, God, if this is your will, then I'll do it. I remember the first year of pastoring was the most difficult time in my life. Like, I think every week I was like, I'm done, I'm giving up. Newly married, we were just expecting a baby. There was financial hardship. I was teaching full-time in a school and then pastoring as well. And I felt stretched to capacity. I met with my pastor many times and said, I think I'm ready to hand it in. I don't think I can do it anymore. I was driving, if you guys know Essex, I was driving from Essex to drop my wife because we couldn't afford 2 cars. I dropped her from Essex all the way to Harlow. So that was about an hour drive in the morning. After dropping her to Harlow, I'm then taking another hour to drive to Ilford, where I was teaching. After I finished teaching, I'm driving back to Harlow, and at least twice a week, then driving to church. So there's times she's just eating McDonald's. I've not eaten for the day. Get to the church. And when I'm saying, God, I'm giving up, we see new people come into Bible study, new people giving their life, new people getting baptized, new people being filled with the Holy Spirit. So I'm like, God, how can I actually give up? If people are coming, being saved, how can I give up? And so long and short of it, I remember coming up to our first year anniversary, and I stood up before the congregation, and I just felt like the Holy Spirit spoke to me right there and said, Ashley, church is not the problem. Your work is the problem. Because I was balancing both. And a lot of times we can blame ministry, but there's loads of other things going on as well. Yeah. And so I said, you know what, God? From this day forward, I'm never going to say church is the problem. So my daughter was born. I rolled out serving full-time and doing school as well, and was, getting promotions at work at school. And then I remember going to an event 3 years in of pastoring, and about 7 pastors came up to me. It was like, one guy was like, I sense you're a teacher, but God is calling you full-time. And one after the other, I was just hearing this word of full-time. My pastor's been in the back of my ears, go full-time. But I was thinking, I don't think I'm called for full-time. I just about said yes to doing pastoring. Now we're talking about going full-time. And God was just speaking and pressing on me, go full-time, go full-time. And so ended up going full-time, and now we're 5 years in.
Praise God. Can I just ask a question? So, because I think that one of the conversations, we recently started it last week on Clubhouse about church planting last week. And it would be great if you guys are on it, jump on tomorrow. We'll bring you up to the stage. But you mentioned that you had recently got married, your wife had gotten pregnant, you had work going on, And it's funny because we can relate as well, because my wife got pregnant as well in the first year, and we've got all the church equipment in the car. So we're taking it to work. My wife's pregnant, it's this, it's that, I want this, I want that. I'm working as well, and you have all these other commitments. You're preaching as well. So talk to a little bit more about the first year of it. How did it affect you mentally, your marriage, work, all of those kind of things? Because I think sometimes it's easy to go, yeah, they're church leaders, all they do is preach. And people don't see that reality of how much you've been stretched.
So I think the first stretch was definitely marriage-wise, because where I could be focusing more of my efforts into work and making more money, I wasn't doing that. So therefore, financially, there was a strain. And so we were in debt, and I remember coming home and my wife is crying at home. And the reason why she's crying is because she left a well-paid job that she was in to move to Essex. So she was just a nursery assistant, like couldn't go into proper work. So that would mean she wouldn't get pay. And she's crying and she's saying, like, we just can't buy, I can't buy clothes. Now, for those of you that know, there was clothes there, but she couldn't buy clothes. But I get what they were saying.
We understand. Married men understand.
There's clothes and there's
Innit,
clothes.
baby?
Just keep it moving.
Yeah.
There's clothes there. So where she's crying, that's putting a pressure on me now to want to make more money. To then even go into job interviews where I'm going for jobs where I'm going to make more money. I remember going to this sales job my friend was in, and it would have been good money. And just after leaving there, God saying to me, no. And I'm like, I just need money. Yeah. I need money. So definitely there was a financial strain. And then in terms of marriage, we weren't really seeing each other much because most of it was like we were straining during school term. Half term, holidays was when we get back together and so forth. So there was that strain on the marriage as well in terms of relationship, being pregnant. And then I think what people don't realize a lot as well is when you're giving out to people and ministering and so forth, as a pastor within the first year, you have those mental thoughts, those feeling low kind of thing. Like even I think during that period, maybe I was close to depression, but it was never clinical. No one would have never known because it was the mask. But I think there was this slight sense of depression because it's like I'm managing all of this, and then you look at other people who are full-time in ministry and so forth and think, you know what, I want that kind of life. I want my life easier. What if I had money set up? What if, and so forth. So there was a lot of strain in many different areas.
That is real powerful. I hope you guys are being blessed by the transparency and the honesty that these guys are sharing. I know time is fast spent. I wouldn't want us to end with Israel just giving us a few words about his yes.
I was kind of hoping to slide through because I was just enjoying everybody else's story. I caught myself like 5 minutes ago saying, no, they're going to ask you to speak next.
Of course.
Like, can I get up and go to the bathroom or something? For me, okay, let's do this in 5 minutes.
Please.
Cliff Notes version. So, and I think I've shared a lot about it on Men's Monday as well. So, I'm dating myself now. I got saved 30 years ago. That in itself was quite spectacular. Obviously, I was young. But then my yes really started because, I got saved. It's interesting. I kept going to church and hearing about the rapture. And then I had 2 or 3 close calls where I thought my mom was the perfection of Christianity. In hindsight, she wasn't saved. But she was very well behaved. So I thought, if anybody's going to make the rapture, it's mom. So you can imagine my horror, right, at 10 years old, waking up in the morning and I can't find my mom. It's a Saturday. She's not home. I'm like, the rapture's happened. Yes, like rapture's happened. I'm Jesus, the beast, and the Antichrist. Anyway, so I just you just kind of decide that you should get saved. And I had got a few prophecies of my life from my pastor about the fact that I was called to ministry. So I said sinner's prayer. I gave my life to Christ. I started reading the Bible, but I wasn't regenerated. Now, fast forward some years, and now we're so fast forward to 1998, from the year 1990, and I have this. Oh, in between, sexually abused as a child, twice by women, one by another man. It's quiet. It's okay. Nah, it's cool. It happens. And there's far more people who have that story than we admit in church. And many men, and one of the reasons why it's so destructive for a man is we're supposed to be strong and tough, and it messes with a young boy's mind that somebody can do something to you that you have no ability to fight back over. That's the most destructive part of abuse, in that it emasculates you. It makes you feel like you can't, how can I be a man if I can't defend myself? And then there's also the confusion, because I've heard people say, well, boys don't, except it's by another man. If it's by a woman, they say it wasn't really abuse, he just liked it. But there's a confusion. Your body's acting against your desires. Wow. So your body is enjoying it, but your mind is like, this is violation. Yeah. And many men become sexually perverse because of that dissonance between sexual pleasure and your will. But anyway, I digress. So, being abused, I'm sexually active by 8, consensually. I should mention prior to this, getting saved, I'd been sexually active by about 8 and a half. A 15-year-old girl moved in across the street and said she was in love with me. The rest, as they say, is history. And this was back in the day, as in, I'm dating myself now, where you go tell your parents, they kill you. Yeah. Nobody understood anything about child abuse then. It didn't figure. There was no safeguarding or whatever. And so I was abused, first 4, then 7. I'm sexually active by 8 and a half, consensually. Around the same time, about 11, and you're probably wondering how, but the human body does strange things. By about 12, I discovered this thing called masturbation. And Satan was like, yes, we got this guy. But in between the 8 and the 12, I get saved. I fall in love with God. I'm the guy in the children's church who is always asked to do all the stuff. But I'm holding these things in. I can't tell anybody. Right? So I'm holding on to, or should I say these things are holding me. And then we get to 1998. I remember very clearly, September 1998. And I have this, what's the best way to put it now? I'm just about ready to give up on God. I've had it now. So I've done the whole Christian thing, the whole church thing, hasn't worked. Everybody thinks I'm amazing on the outside, but I'm suffering from depression. I mean literal depression. Being locked in a room for 3 days and staring at a wall and not being able to function. Anyway, we'll keep it moving. Some things I don't want to go into because of time. And so I say to God, you know what? You're not real. Prove it. Right? Prove it. I am at the back of a building at about 11 p.m. at night. And I see a constellation shift in the heavens. I ain't lying to you. I literally see the stars realign into a face. And God says, son, I did this for you. So, okay, you're real. We get it. But I don't like you. Because you are supposed to be my father, right? Well, this is what I know about fathers. My biological father, my mom broke up when I was 6 months old. They had me as kids in university. And you know how it is, ladies, please do not say or do anything that damages your child's picture of his father just because you and the father have an issue. But I had this picture of not being necessarily wanted. And then my stepfather, who was a father to me, had left the house when I was a teenager and disappeared. And I spoke to him for the first time in 25 years this year. It was the first time I spoke to my stepfather in 25 years. I chased him. He would change his number. He was literally trying to avoid us. you know, and then a male authority figure who was supposed to be looking after me as a child had sexually violated me. And so I'm like, you're a father. You're not trustworthy. You're not dependable. You're an abuser, and my life's upside down. I'm a young man now. I'm crossing from my teens into my 20s, and I'm just fed up. I'm like, I don't want to have nothing to do with you anymore. So I know you're real, but stay away from me. But I couldn't act it out because by this time I was the youth leader at church. And so I am living a lie. I'm not walking in sin because everybody around me knows me. But there's no relationship with God anymore. There's no prayer. There's no Bible fellowship. But I'm going to church. I'm preaching. People are getting baptized in the Holy Spirit. People are getting slain. People are telling me how they're so excited because, you know, they were going through some stuff and they just really felt that I was praying for them at that moment. I was like, dude. And then in the year 2000, I relocate from, 2001, I relocate from Nigeria, where I was born, to the United Kingdom. And I start to live with my biological father for the first time. I can see, you know how that went, right? And the dysfunction of that relationship just shattered the last veneer of pretense I had to give. It was around the same time I met this guy. And so I showed up. I was in university in Nigeria. I'd done a couple of years, and then the opportunity came to come to the United Kingdom. You grab it with both hands, if you know what I mean. So I came and I started again. And he remembers, I showed up in Sheffield in 2001, determined to prove to God that I wanted to have nothing to do with him. As in, I was on a vendetta. I was trying to I was a rebellious young man trying to make a statement that I don't like you. I don't want to have any, and I mean, the whole thing, I mean, you remember, bro, clubs, raves, stuff, girls, you name it. My nickname was Glamour Boy. Do you remember the time when, was it you or Wenga, we had this, we bumped into this girl who was telling me about me. She was telling me about being in a pseudo-beneficial relationship with me. Do you understand what I mean? That was how bad it was. And what people didn't realize was, on the outside, I was this HNIC, this big man on campus. But on the inside, I was this broken, battered young man. There were several times where we would leave a club, and, you know, back in the day, we got to school, we were broke guys, so we had this pact, you remember, where we went clubbing. We had enough money to get there in a taxi, enough money to get back. And so whoever pulled first got the taxi money. Remember? And the rest of us would walk home as solidarity to our brother. Right? 40 minutes, something like that. And there were many nights where some of my friends did not know that I took that taxi money, got home, sat down on a bed on the other side of this girl, and we stared at each other for 2.5 hours, and then she had to leave, because there's this picture of my mom on my wall that was a reminder of where I was coming from with God. And there were nights where God would just literally arrest me and say, I'm not done with you yet. So it came to a head in 2004. I'm in my room. I'm doing my master's at the time. I'm in my room with my girlfriend, and we're just, fooling around, doing what comes naturally. And we started having this strange pillow talk. I just said, what if your dad walked in right now? I mean, it's crazy, right? She goes, oh man, he'd really kill you. He'd beat you, blah, blah, blah. You'd be in the hospital. I'm like, would you come and visit me? So, oh, yeah, I'll come. I'll bring flowers, blah, blah, blah. And then she says, and I'll pray that God will heal you. Just a joke. We're both, wearing our birthday suits, by the way. And I heard an audible voice. She didn't hear it, but I heard it audibly. And it says, and why would I want to do that? And then for the next 2 hours, God walks into the room And she's freaking out because she can't see anything. But she says, I'm talking to an invisible object and my face is reflecting light. So whatever I was talking to must have been luminous. And it was in my vision that I was having. But she says my face was glowing. And God and I began to talk. And so God's like, look at you. I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of messed up. He says, no, I mean literally look at you. So I look at me, and of course I'm not wearing anything. And then, and he's like, look at how far you've come. See how far the devil has brought you. And then I begin to say, God, I'm messed up. I'm jacked up. I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other. And I say, you know what? You can't use me anymore. So here's my younger brother. I begin to offer God other people to fulfill the prophecies about me. As a teenager, take my younger brother, blah, blah, blah. And he said something I had never heard before. Now it seems so commonsensical, but at the time I'd never heard it before. He says, I want you just the way you are. No one ever said that to me. My mindset was, if I was ever going to get back with God, I was going to have to fix up myself, put myself. God says, I want you just the way. So I asked him some questions. I said, God, so can I go clubbing? He says, yes. Can I have sex? He says, yes. Hear me out. I'm be like, hear me out. Can I watch porn? He says, yes. So, you want me just as I am. I'm going to make it clear. This is who I am. I'm a bad guy. So, because they just come the way you. I said, okay, cool. 4 weeks later, I was praying and I realized it's been 4 weeks. No club, no sex, no porn, no nothing. It's been 4 weeks of 5 a.m., literally waking up in the morning, God tapping me on the shoulder. And I don't understand people who say they struggle to pray, because for me, praying is just, I don't pray. It's a conversation. I started playing instruments. Musicians and I in church always fight, because for me, music is not an art form that we used to worship God. I learned music in that period. That's when I started. This guy used to teach me to play the piano back then. I learned music as a tool to give me a platform to have those conversations with God. So every note, every melody, everything had to mean something spiritually, right? And over the next few months, God and I just went on this crazy, it was like we're making up for lost time. Bear in mind, I knew the Bible, I'd been a preacher before, I'd been in ministry before, but we're now making up for lost time, right? And I'm going to end with this. Because I know I've gone on more than 5 minutes. I'm going to end with this.
Most definitely.
We began a journey in 2004 that has led to what I become today. That room was the beginning of me now. Over the next few weeks, God began to speak to me about kingdom culture and ministry and everything. Everything I'm doing today was hatched in the few months after that. Encounters, anointings, visions, dreams, all that kind of stuff. But I look back now, 16 years later, 17 or 16 churches, church plants later, all the stuff that we've done ministerially. And I want to summarize it for any young man or woman watching who's called to ministry. I was trying to grow a ministry. It's obvious God was trying to grow me. When I look back over the last 16 years since that moment, and I figured this out a few years ago, about 5-6 years ago, that all he wanted was for ministry to be the overflow of my private well with him. And so the things we've all spoken about, the challenges, because I know that feeling well. My 2 children were each born a week after we had to move city because of ministry. I've had times where I couldn't afford electricity and gas, where I had to put my food on the snow in my backyard. So I was hearing all you guys, and like, man, this is so eerily similar. But the one thing I want to point out as I hand over this mic is this. The reason for all those things God's taking all of us through, and is taking some of you through, is he's trying to build a man or a woman who he can trust with what he has for you. It's a curriculum designed to prepare you to handle what is coming. And it's more painful because I think it was you who said it to you, my brother, that part of the pain is looking at other people walking in what you think you have a right to. either your peers or those ahead of you. And it makes the pain worse because that prophecy, that promise, that encounter you had that told you about your future missed out the in-between. And so you're being tormented by where God is taking you. And like Joseph, the quickest way to get there is to one day remember your dream because you forgot it. Bible says when his brothers came, Joseph remembered his dream. In essence, Joseph forgot about where he was going and embraced the process along the way. Joseph allowed God work in the day-to-day without trying to form fit every occurrence to a desired future. Joseph stopped trying to grow a platform, a ministry, a brand, and anything. And he let God use the process to grow him. And when God was done growing him, God says, okay, it'd be a waste of this we've grown. Let's give you this. Now that you've become a mature son, what church in heaven do we need to bring on the earth? Okay, let's take this one. You can handle that. What woman's destiny do we need a man to be her life partner to help her fulfill? Let's trust you with that. You can be a husband. What future great man or woman needs a father? Let's trust you with that child. Does that make sense? What community needs a leader? What generation needs a voice? And so that's what my journey has taught me. That God's more interested in me, the man, and what I allow him build in me determines what he can put on me.
Powerful. What a way to end this panel discussion. I hope you man them were being blessed by these guys' stories.